Pulling.
Hi, this is John Roner at Intelligentry. We just got back from the Power Gen show, and we had a great time there. We unfortunately could not run our engine because of not getting permission to do it, and because our truck got there so damn late, we didn't have most of, we couldn't even get the stuff off the truck. But in any case, a company called G&G from Houston, Texas, came up here on the 28th of November, and they were supposed to bring one of their manufactured engines with them so that we could put it together and check it out and maybe put electronics on it. Unfortunately, they didn't do that. The first day they were here, what did they have, Tom? Do you remember? They had plastic pistons.
They brought their pistons, their cylinders, and their case.
Something came up the next day, UPS.
Hello.
Hi. Anyway, then the next day a couple more parts came in, and we never saw a block or a crank or anything else. But we got told that they were doing extensive re-engineering for some unknown reason. My thought at the time was, what the heck, we make sample engines, and if they want to make engines their way, fine. We were supposed to pick up 3 of their engines and bring them on the way to Houston on our truck, going to the show, and maybe bring them all 3 back here to retrofit with electronics. Unfortunately, they didn't have the 3 of them ready on time, so they ended up taking one of their engines down to the Power Gen show, and we allowed them to show the engine that was there. Now, one thing that you should all know is that the engines that they were showing were not even hooked into the cart. They were actually hooked into this, i.e., there was no possible way they could have ever even taken the torque of 1 turn. But for some reason, they thought they were going to get electronics put on their engine. And the actual way that that worked was we were going to bring their engine back here and refit one of their engines, and they were going to send somebody out here to put the electronics on another engine so they know how to make it work. We made no claim at all, ever, that we were going to have electronics for any engine of theirs at the Power Gen show. Fact is, we didn't even know we were going to have one of their engines at the Power Gen show until they showed up with it, you know, on this footed thing that went on the thing. The reason I'm saying that is because they have stated that they brought an engine that was ready to run to the show, and that we failed to give them electronics. As a matter of fact, we didn't take any spare electronics because we didn't know that we were supposed to give them electronics. And now we're going to, and that being said, we're going to now have a look at the other side of that coin. They spent the whole show telling everyone how much re-engineering they had to do to this engine and how great it was. And they also sent that engine back here with us to get electronics put into it. Well, that brings us up into the, their engine was ready to run part, because the fact of the matter is that when they were here, a simple spark plug couldn't be put in their head because they had forgotten to put any clearance for the body. And the thread, standard spark plug thread, was wrong. You couldn't screw one of these in one of their heads. So they said, oh, no problem, we'll just go remake the head. So of course the assumption was that they remade the heads and put them on this new engine that they had at the Power Gen show. Well, and this engine's ready to run now. Got that? So let's just take one of their heads right here, and let's drop a spark plug in here, and let's just screw it in. You notice they did give you some relief for the body here now, but you also notice that the spark plug only turns a half a turn. And the reason the spark plug only turns a half turn is because the thread in there is still wrong. This thing is going in 1/2 turn, and because it's a coarse thread, now it wants to cross thread before it can go any further. Now, what's interesting about that is that if these don't go in and seal, you can't fuel the engine. If you can't fuel the engine, then how the hell do you expect to run with it? Well, the answer to that is you can't. So even though they spent 3 days telling everybody that they had a runnable engine there, the engine was in no way, shape, or form even close. And it starts right here at the spark plugs. The next thing that we got this engine back here, and we went to turn it over just so we could start looking at timing it. And you can see here and there and a couple other odds and ends that the engine didn't turn. It went about 60 degrees? It went about 60 degrees and then ground to a halt. And it ground to the halt because, as you can see here, they evidently went after this with a hand grinder in order to try and give it some clearance. And the reason for that is because they had misdone these two, and it looks like they took way too much metal from this area here. I mean, there's at least this much area here that's available, and they just simply cut it down too thin. And then of course they had to go back in, and as you can see here, they actually had to mill the top of that. Now, in most of our cases, in most of our blocks that were manufactured correctly, you can see there's nothing at all here across there. Okay? They do face this and they do face that in order to make sure they got this width correct. But you can see there's nothing here. You can see the difference between these two right away. Okay? Now, that being said, well, we found out we couldn't turn the engine over. So, without being able to turn the engine over, we decided that we'd have to go look and see if we could find some way to clean it up, or to find some way so it would go over. In doing that, we started by deciding to take the coils off and get this ready to take off from here. And what did we find? Well, we took the ring that holds the head here in, and voila! Now, the standard production item, whereas that everybody here makes, looks like that. Now, you notice that if I turn this upside down, the cylinder does not drop out. The reason for that is because this casting right here is meant to be nothing more than a holder. You can see how much space there is here. All of that space was engineered here so that the cylinder would go into it. There. Right? And it's meant to be a 2,000, in other words, this bore is meant to be 2,000 smaller than this. So this is meant to be pressed in so that it won't come out. Okay, the reason for that is because this is basically one of the most reliable parts in the whole engine. Now, where's the, cylinder, one of our real cylinders. Oh, I should have brought one back from the front, huh? Hang on a sec. Our standard cylinder, which goes inside of our standard liner, not this one, but our standard liner, or for that matter, maybe this one. I haven't tried this one. Wow, how about that? This one might actually have worked in there. Anyway, so they might have machined that one right and just screwed this one up. But as you can see, our normal cylinder is a simple 3.5 inch OD stainless steel non-magnetic tube. And of course we bore it to 80 millimeters. We put a flanger on one end and a couple of shaft things, okay, in order to make up the cylinder. This, in turn, is what gets pressed into this in order to make this. Now, you see the difference between these two? You can see them really quick. Now, why do we not machine out here? Well, because when we press this into that, we want it to be able to seal. And this is a rough surface out here, because it's an extruded tube. On that rough surface, if you put a sealant up here, when you press them together, the sealant has somewhere to grab. Okay? But when they're machined up smooth like this, you can see there's nothing there to grab. I mean, quite honestly, even my finger won't stop. Okay? So, if you make this too small, and from what I understand, they did this because they expected to change cylinders in the field, okay, which just between us is not something that I would ever